Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha Ho. I'm a senior in my last semester at Cal State University Fullerton, and today I'll be introducing the ethical issue arising from Apple's Batterygate scandal that occurred in 2016. So before we get into detail, I wanted to go over a quick run through over the history of the most famous technology brand in the world. Apple is no doubt one of the most top-selling technology brands in the US and internationally. They are most known for their productions of iPhones, iPads, and MacBook laptops and computers. They have a history of rivalry amongst the strong competitor Android, but that's a topic we'll save for another day. Apple was founded on April 1st, 1976, in a garage with just three best friends. The most visible founders were the two Steves, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. The third founder was Ronald Wayne, who created the iPhone, iPad, and MacBook. The two Steves started their entrepreneurship with the creation of building blue boxes, which had the idea of making long distance phone calls for free. Wozniak produced the first computer, which was called Apple I. It had a typewriter as its keyboard and TV for the monitor. Jobs saw its brilliance and funded the production along with Wozniak's support. Ultimately, these stepping stones founded the most successful company to date, Apple. There's an interesting story of how they came up with the name Apple. It was when Steve Jobs visited an apple farm and thought the name sounded fun, spirited, and not intimidating. The name would also benefit the company because it started with an A, which meant that they would always have a reserved spot at the top of any listing. So, why did I choose this topic? I chose this subject because every technological product that I own is produced by Apple. I was attracted to this topic because I know that Apple is a very popular technology company that many people could relate to. I was also interested in knowing why, even though I know that Apple products purposely slow down their software and their older products, why was I continuing to buy their products? Compared to other companies who specialize in producing just computers or phones, Apple creates products in several different industries. So, why was I buying from a company that continues to drop their quality and products? I personally can relate to having my products being slowed down every time Apple puts a new product into the market. So, I thought it would be interesting to research about this issue more in depth. The, batter- the Batterygate scandal was one of the biggest Apple scandals of all time. For those of you who have never heard about it, like I haven't, on March 2017, Apple agreed to pay $113 million to settle consumer fraud lawsuits. The scandal was centered around the idea that Apple purposely slowed down older Apple products so that consumers would be inclined to buy their newer products. More than 30 states in the US reported Apple's defect. Apple denied the accusations at first, stating that the phones did that in order to preserve battery life, even though consumers reported that it would also shut off. The older models, the older models that would slow down were for the models between 2014 and 2016. This news of fraud and deceit of Apple was first mentioned through Reddit threads and technology blogs. In result of this scandal, Apple admitted to their defects of purposely slowing down old iPhones in December 2017. In March 2017, Apple agreed to pay a total sum of $500 million to settle the case. $113 million would go to the states who reported the defects, and the difference will go to the consumers. Apple's punishment was to pay $25 to consumers per phone. As a result of the case, in 2018, Apple produced a better control of iPhone battery life, which allowed customers to view their battery health and turn off the phone's battery throttling. In the year 2010, You're Holding It Wrong became the biggest meme for Steve Jobs. It was a result of yet one another of Apple's biggest scandals. In 2010, the iPhone 4 was released and made a whopping $1.7 million in sales in the first day of release. With the huge craze and excitement of the new phone, it wasn't long for consumers to find an issue with the phone. People had found out that when the phone is held in their left hand, the signal bar drops and the wireless network loses its connection, making people's calls drop. The reason why I'm bringing this scandal to light is because I saw a trend in the way Apple handles their scandals. In both the Batterygate and Batterygate scandals, Apple downplays its severity. In Batterygate, Steve Jobs placed the fault on the user, stating that they were holding the phone wrong, thus giving birth to the iconic "You're Holding It Wrong" meme. It turns out the actual issue was the phone antenna itself. Apple in both cases was slow to acknowledge the real problem and doesn't state any defects until the public makes a statement themselves. In both the scandals, we can see that Apple reveals two ethical issues. The two ethical issues that go hand in hand is Apple's consistent trend of lying and being deceptive to their customers. Apple raises these issues by hiding a lot of their secrets from their customers. They have several scandals about hiding the defects of their products. We can see that there is a common trend of being deceitful, which could raise questions about their company transparency. On top of lying, they're also slow to acknowledge the issue and takes a while to admit to their faults. In their history of scandals, the common trends within them show that the company has not seemed to have learned their lesson. In this slide, I'll dissect some of Apple's inside practices that may have resulted in them delaying the news of their defects. In Apple's organizational culture, they follow three core aspects of the company. First being the culture of creative innovation, top-notch excellence, and secrecy. Apple continues to have an ongoing pressure from the public because of their greatest creations and the quality they bring. Their culture of bringing forth innovation is supported through cultural support, coherence, which are two determinants of competitiveness and industry leadership. Because of their stronghold on being innovative, they have the constant pressure of ensuring their products are perfect in order to maintain their reputation of being creative. This may have affected the delay in announcing their defects because they wanted the world to know that their innovation creations are feasible and great ideas. The company itself also holds the value of top-notch excellence, in which they only hire the best of the best engineers into the company. It is said that engineers who cannot keep up with the process are fired from the company. This picture that they molded themselves of being at the top of the engineering industry placed a heavy burden of having to be perfect at all times. Because they had the best knowledge within the industry, it would ruin their reputation and brand they built if they were to expose their imperfections. Lastly, another value that they hold is secrecy. Jobs implemented this practice into the company because he wanted to minimize theft of information and intellectual property. This value also maximizes Apple's leading edge against their competitors. This value may have influenced Apple's response to accusations because they don't want their competitors to know that their products are still faulty. They want their competitors to know that they still have the upper hand. Other factors that may have influenced Apple to hide their defects is because they wanted to keep their consumers happy. They wanted to keep up their reputation for their customers, even if it meant their products were faulty. Another thing we need to take into consideration is that it's normal for battery life to die faster the older they get. However, considering the price that we pay for the phone, it should be guaranteed that the battery life should last for several years and not just two. Apple would also take a hit in sales if they had openly admitted to their faults, since the company is known to be advanced with the best engineers. It would damage their reputation if they had let out the news that they weren't up to consumer standards. Since Apple does release new phones every year, it is assumed that most consumers would purchase the new phone as soon as it comes out. Even if customers don't get the new phone one after another, Apple probably assumed that their consumers would purchase a new iPhone within 1 to 3 years of using the older version. However, they failed to acknowledge the customers who aren't able to afford their newer version every 3 years and are satisfied with the older one. This failure to acknowledge that some customers don't want to switch to their newest products is what led to Apple's history of scandals. In my research of the Batterygate scandal, I do not agree with Apple's choice in lying and being deceitful to their customers. I believe that company transparency with consumers is important in a business. In order to have loyal customers, they need to be honest with them first. If the consumers are buying the product, they should at least be let know the defects of it. I feel that Apple should have admitted to their accusations without lying and dragging it on. In any case, I feel that dragging it out and admitting to it later puts a bad look on Apple products. However, no matter how bad the deed may have seemed, it is safe to assume that many other companies follow the same trends as Apple. No matter what company I purchase products from, not every company will be perfect in manufacturing them. We can also expect them to not to admit to their faults either because it could potentially ruin their reputation. Overall, the scandal does not change my perception of Apple. I'm aware of the slowed battery life, but as of recently, I personally haven't had much issues with it. However, I did notice on my 2016 MacBook, my battery life was not in an optimal position, but eventually I knew myself that I needed a new laptop anyway, so the problem itself didn't bother me as much. To conclude, I am still a supporter of Apple simply because I love how convenient and transferable it is. AirDrop and iCloud transferability is the most useful tool that Apple has created. I enjoy being able to connect all of my Apple products together and having consistent data within all of my devices. The sleek and simple design makes it easier to carry around and also looks very nice. Though I still support the company, I would advise that they fix their imperfections before releasing their new products. So after viewing this case, I would like to ask if you're an Apple user, after learning about Apple's history of scandals, would you still continue to support them? Why or why not? And what made you choose Apple over other companies? If you are not an Apple user, could you please elaborate why you chose a different company over them? And that concludes my presentation, and I thank you all for listening.